This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
Sudan's ex-president Bashir charged with corruption and holding illicit foreign currency. Tripoli government says UN has stopped repatriation efforts. And Tunisia's traditional carpet weaver embraces social media. Hello and thank you for joining us on Africa Live. I'm Penina Karibe. Also coming up tonight, female engineers in Nigeria address gender gap in male-dominated field. And the UN says about 3 million refugees have no access to education. The trial of Sudan's ex-president Omar al-Bashir is about to enter its third week. The 75-year-old former leader has now been questioned in court for the very first time. CGTN's Jin Keo has more.
A Sudanese court has formally indicted the former leader Omar al-Bashir on charges of corruption and possessing illicit foreign currency. Questioned in court for the first time, Bashir said he had received $25 million from the Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, as well as funds from other sources. But he added that the money was not received or used for his own benefit.
We did not supply the money to the Bank of Sudan because we meant to hide the source, and we did so because this was the desire of the prince. I had hoped that this would have been a secret court in order not to show the name of the prince. He did not want his name to appear anywhere, which is why he sent the money on a private plane with a private envoy. This was his wish, for it not to be known.
One of Bashir's lawyers has said the former leader denies the charges against him and that witnesses for the defense would be presented at the next hearing. Nevertheless, a judge has denied bail for Bashir and says that the duration of his detention will be addressed at a hearing on the 7th of September.
The evidence provided by the seizure of the foreign currency in the possession of the accused and the codification of the judicial recognition of possession and disposition justifies the continuation of the proceedings until proving their origin and their usage in accordance with the provisions of the law and laws that determine those actions. For these reasons, we've decided to deny the bail request and to keep the accused in custody for the purpose of the trial.
Sudan's military ousted Omar al-Bashir in April after months of nationwide protests. In May, Bashir was also charged with incitement and involvement in the killing of protesters. His trial is seen as a test of how far the new joint civilian-military authority will go to counter the legacy of his 30-year rule. Jane Keo, CGTN.
Still in Sudan, hundreds have been taking to the streets once again. The rallies took place in Khartoum and Omdurman on Friday, coinciding with the International Day of the Disappeared. This time, they were demanding answers to the whereabouts of demonstrators that have been missing since the deadly dispersal of a protest camp in June. At least 11 people are still unaccounted for after the violent crackdown occurred outside the army headquarters in Khartoum.
We are protesting today, but we are also visiting the families of the people missing today on the 30th of August because it is the International Day for the Disappeared. We are hoping that those who are responsible will release them or give us their bodies if they're dead.
We have been working for so long in order to find the missing people. And at the same time, we're trying to make a pressure on the Sudanese Profession Association to work on this. But we really can't find the response that we're looking for. And we're still calling them now from the street to do something about this, because this is not just any normal case. This is a criminal case.
Libya's government of national accord says that the UN has stopped its migrants' repatriation efforts. Libya has been struggling with a migrant crisis since the fall of Muammar Gaddafi in 2012. Despite its struggling economy, the North African nation has been providing humanitarian support, putting more pressure on its tight budget. Here's CGTN's Adil Mahri with more.
Tripoli's Minister of Interior says the UN ceased supporting programs which bring migrants stranded in Libya back to their countries. With Europe taking a major step back in receiving migrants, Libya appears to be stuck with hundreds of thousands of migrants.
Libya is not alone. It is divided and confused. There is a European conflict between France, Italy and England, represented in the support of Fayez al-Sarraj in the west and Khalifa Haftar in the east. There is no government that controls the entire nation. That's why migrant control is not effective. Libya is in a crisis and Europe doesn't know who to support. It's only pushing migrant ships back to Libya.
Libya's eastern neighbor, Egypt, has been helping out. It has significantly cut the influx of illegal migrants into Libya from its borders. Cairo has also been trying to move stagnant African support in that file.
Egypt is helping Libya by monitoring their joint border, by training the LNA forces and by sharing intelligence information. Egypt has massive control over the water and land border between them. It is concerned with illegal migration, but it cares more about the entrance of extremist militants into Egypt. It's why it has prioritized that file in the African Union as it chairs it this year.
International support to migrants in Libya has been diminishing thanks to the ongoing war over Tripoli. There are thousands of migrants held in detention centers there. Libya has an estimated 800,000 Africans waiting to get asylum or refuge in Europe.
With Europe pushing them back and the UN seizing its support to repatriation programs, migrants remain stranded in Libya. They get little financial support to live there, diminishing chances to legally enter Europe, and no safe passage to go back home. Adel Mahroui, CGTN, Cairo.
Engineering remains a gender-imbalanced field where women account for only a fraction of all engineers worldwide. In most African countries, this figure is even lower as cultural beliefs often impose gender roles for men and women. But one Nigerian tech firm and a group of young women are breaking down these barriers. CGTN's Deji Badmas has more on this story.
These young ladies are more like rare species. They're in the top 12% of female engineers at tech firm Andela, and in the top 7% of women engineers in Nigeria, and the top 12% globally. They're defying societal norms and clearing doubts about their abilities by pursuing careers in the male-dominated field of engineering. Each has a unique story of how they got into the field of software engineering.
I actually stumbled into software engineering because back then I was running a small business, a tailoring business, and I just knew I needed something more challenging. And so I was introduced to Andela by my sister.
When I finished school, everyone was quick to suggest, okay, why don't you take a catering course or go to a tailoring school? And not that those are bad choices, but whenever I think about those things these days, I think to myself, what about, other career choices, other career paths like DevOps, what I do, like machine learning, cloud architecture. These are all valid paths that a lady can take.
Today, they are breaking new grounds in their chosen career path and developing software applications that make life easier for people. Feeling the gender gap in the field of engineering and technology, especially in Africa, are societal stereotypes that women are just not cut out for setting careers. It's something these ladies have all confronted at different times.
People think that women can write code, and women that write code don't look good generally. It's just one of the stereotypes out there. And I also remember one of my friends, then friends, telling me that he would actually die the day he sees me write code for an actual company. Yeah, so this is what that did for me. I was angry initially, but then I turned that anger into motivation, and I wanted to prove him wrong. And I've been doing that all these years.
All four of them were hired by global engineering firm Andela less than a year ago. The company is helping to close the gender gap in engineering and technology by hiring more women and nurturing them.
Here at Andela, there aren't any stereotypes I face. The environment is very conducive for work and very welcoming for female engineers.
One of the things that we're putting in place is sponsoring tech events and then having our female engineers to also speak in all of these events, just so that the ones out there who might be even considering starting a career in engineering can see these women, and have them serve as mentors, as the case is.
The young women are not only living out their dreams, they're urging other women who so wish to follow their path.
You're the only person that can stop yourself. Even if everyone is screaming and shouting, no, you can't do this, just say to yourself, if anyone else can do it, then I can also do it.
Because we are ladies, we don't have smaller brains and we don't have less grit or determination because we are ladies. So if you want to join tech, do it.
Hopefully more women would heed the call and help to close the gender gap in a field long seen as a man's world. Deji Badmos, CGTN, Lagos, Nigeria.
The UN Refugee Agency, UNHCR, has released a report indicating that out of the 7.1 million refugee children of school age, 3.7 million of them do not go to school. The report shows that as refugee children grow older, the barriers preventing them from accessing education becomes harder to overcome. CGTN's Wilkis Tanyabwa gives us more details.
According to the UNHCR, only 63% of refugee children go to primary school compared to 91% globally, and around the world, 84% of adolescents get a secondary education, while only 24% of refugees manage to get the same opportunity.
Not investing in refugees, people who have fled war zones, people who have fled countries where the world is interested in a future of peace, is not investing very simply in the future of its people. The people who could be the future teachers, architects, peacemakers, artists, politicians who are interested in reconciliation and not revenge. So it is short-sighted and it is frankly dumb.
The agency claims that the steep decline in refugee enrollment between primary and secondary school is a direct result of lack of funding for refugee education. The UNHCR is now urging governments, the private sector, educational organizations and donors to give their financial backing to a new initiative aimed at kickstarting secondary education for refugees.
We have in more than 20 African countries, UNHCR is collaborating with the national education authorities, as well as other UN agencies, civil society, to support refugee inclusion. And this is one of the areas that is absolutely the most critical to solve the problem. You know, where you have a country that has a decent national school system, all we're asking is please allow the refugees to attend.
The secondary school initiative will target the construction and refurbishment of schools, teacher training, and would give financial support to refugee families so that they can cover all education expenses for their children. This year's report also called for refugees to be included in national education systems instead of being enrolled into unofficial parallel schools. This will give them the recognized qualifications that can be their springboard to university or higher vocational training.
Our goal is, of course, very visionary, to get every refugee child in school. We won't be able to achieve the Sustainable Development Goal number 4 if we don't. But more importantly, we are missing the chance to contribute to the healing, to the well-being and of refugee children, and also to the future of their countries.
The UN Refugee Agency stressed that the issue of education for the world's refugee children is urgent. The agency says that rallying support for the secondary education initiative would be a key part of the forthcoming Global Refugee Forum, which will take place in December 2019. Wilkis Tanyabwa, CGTN.
You're watching Africa Live. Still ahead. Tunisia's traditional carpet weaver embraces social media. And taxidermist seeks to improve South Africa's $39 million business.
No one again, he can hold in guns. Machine guns from police forces toward the protesters.
Were you worried about your life at that particular time?
Not at all.
What is your assessment of the state of the continent today?
Africa has the potential to power itself.
Excuse me.
Ben Aissa is a traditional Tunisian carpet weaver. She sells her creations at exhibitions and fairs across the country. But she also relies on her 22-year-old daughter to sell carpets via social media and reach new clients across the world. CGTN's Adnet Shawashi has more.
After months of hard work, Siham is finally packing her best handmade carpets. The artisan will exhibit the colorful rugs in the capital city Tunis.
Siham now dreams of having her own carpet company, but keeping the carpet business alive is a very difficult task. She travels for hundreds of miles to sell her carpets at exhibition centers and fairs.
Competition is fierce at the Kram Exhibition Center. The best craftswomen in the country seize this annual occasion to present their latest creations. Artisans can make up to 70% of their annual revenues in 7 days.
The exhibition is an opportunity because I meet hundreds of clients, but I cannot rent a large exhibition stand because it's very expensive.
Sarah is an English teacher who's using her linguistic, artistic, and technological skills to sell her mother's carpets online.
I take nice photos of the carpets and share them on social networks. I can reach customers anywhere and boost my mom's and the family's revenues.
Using smartphones has become a habit. Siham is often surprised by the comments of Facebook users posted on her page or online shop.
People send feedback on social media, and I learn so much from them. They even send new designs that I use for carpet weaving.
Siham, the talented artisan, wishes to build a modern website with an online payment system to commercialize her unique products worldwide. The unusual and modern marketing strategy has contributed to the preservation of the millenary art of carpet weaving in Tunisia. Adnan Shawashi, CGTN, the village of Mansoura, Seliana, northwest of Tunisia.
To South Africa now, where a master taxidermist is helping improve the country's economy by preserving wildlife carcasses. The family business specializes in big cuts and works on up to 2,500 animals per year. CGTN's Noel Makugu has more.
Rodney has been working as a Trans-African taxidermist for the past 50 years. This business, which specializes in taxidermy, was founded by his grandfather. Taxidermy is the practice of preparing, stuffing and mounting skins of animals with lifelike effects. Unlike most taxidermists who use pre-existing forms, Rodney creates his own.
I personally spend a lot of time in the field and in the reserves studying animals, and by doing that it gives me a great satisfaction to be able to produce an animal to its glory that it was, in a natural as it was, through taxidermy. So it's the personal satisfaction is to be recreating something of such beauty to its ultimate accuracy.
Rodney says the industry has been in the decline due to restrictive legislation that hinder taxidermists from exporting their products.
Because of the illegal hunting, the problems we have with rhino and elephant poaching, etc. It's created a worldwide environment which is now hitting us with such tremendous restrictions that we cannot freely do our work. We can't employ more people. We could if we weren't so restricted, but at the moment it's really, really difficult.
Brinsley Mogwai is one of the longest-serving employees, having worked for the studio for the past 28 years.
During that time, we were not seeing the animals. So what makes me very interested is that I get to know more animals that I've never seen before in my life.
Despite the industry facing constant criticism from animal rights groups, Rodney maintains that everything he has done has been above board and that his business has been a key contributor to the local animal conservation. Noel Makugu, CGTN.
Now to Hong Kong, where radical protesters have vandalized the customer service center and damaged the ticket issuing machines inside the Mong Kok MTR station. Protesters also assaulted members of the public and damaged property inside the Prince Edward MTR station. Upon receiving the reports, police entered the subway stations to stop all violent acts and arrest offenders. They have appealed to everyone at the scene to leave immediately. Meanwhile, the local government in Hong Kong has said it resolutely condemns this weekend's violent protests. Demonstrators started fires in the Wan Chai and Causeway Bay areas of the city on Saturday. In Admiralty, they threw petrol bombs and vandalized the city's central government complex and legislative council. Elsewhere, they damaged facilities at some subway stations and set up roadblocks at traffic junctions. Others threw bricks and corrosive liquid and set fire to barriers. Police said they issued various warnings before deploying tear gas on the protesters, adding they would use appropriate force to disperse them if needed. Authorities are warning residents to stay indoors and keep their windows shut. Also today, police said they detained 2 men and a woman suspected of making explosives. In the United Kingdom, massive rallies are being staged across the country in protest against the Prime Minister's controversial decision to suspend Parliament weeks before the country is scheduled to leave the European Union. Boris Johnson's move has been widely seen as a vehicle to impede his opponents who don't want to leave the bloc without a deal. The biggest rally is being held near the British Premier's residence, but there are dozens more around the country. One opposition group has called on its supporters to occupy bridges and block roads. The demonstrations come ahead of an intense week in which Johnson's opponents will seek to overturn his suspension of Parliament in court and legislate against a no-deal Brexit. Around 200 Yellow Vest protesters gathered in Paris on Saturday for the 42nd week of the often violent anti-government movement. The protesters marched through the French capital's Place du Gambetta Square, demanding higher purchasing power and fiscal justice from President Emmanuel Macron's government. The movement has been losing steam in recent months. Turnout has been well below peaks seen in November and December last year, when up to 300,000 took to the streets on Saturdays. The protests have often resulted in widespread violence and vandalism in Paris. Yellow Vests have called for demonstrations in Paris on September 21st as the movement's first anniversary nears. Coming up in sports, South Africa Springbok star winger DNT faces 4-year doping ban after base sample tested positive for banned substances.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
The South African rugby community is reeling from news that star Springbok winger Ampiwe Dantie has once more tested positive for banned multiple anabolic and metabolites. The 25-year-old's B sample returned adverse findings after he denied taking any performance-enhancing drugs when his A sample tested positive. Dantie now faces a 4-year ban from the sport. CGTN's Duplessis reports.
The Springboks' departure for the World Cup in Japan on Friday has overshadowed the news of Deante's B sample coming back positive. Coach Rassie Erasmus expressed his disappointment earlier in the week and said he was aware of the A sample coming back positive, but admitted that the World Rugby Breakthrough Player of the Year would not have made the squad due to injury.
Apio wasn't going to make the World Cup squad anyway in terms of injury, because he just hasn't played rugby for the last 5-6 weeks. So that was my point of view. And I only heard that, as I said, was 13th of August. I only heard that. So, and I didn't think it was something withheld from us. I think that was when it was only made official, and I think Apio now came out and said himself that he was tested positive. So yeah, it wasn't something that myself, or Soro for that matter, tried to keep away from everybody.
The Springbok and Lions wing had initially denied any wrongdoing, but when his B sample, which was tested at the WADA accredited lab in Bloemfontein, came back positive for methyl testosterone and metendinone, both substances are banned in and out of competition, it was game over for the 25-year-old. Speculation is rife that Deanti took the anabolic steroids to recover faster from injury to be fit for World Cup selection. He now has the option of admitting to the charge and accepting the sanction, or to submit a plea for consideration of a reduced sanction. If he disputes the charge and pleads not guilty, a hearing will be set down within the next 4 weeks. It's a sad day for the sport, as a player with so much potential has now cut short a promising international career and the chance to play at the World Cup. CS Du Plessis, CGTN, Johannesburg.
Egypt international midfielder Mohamed El Neni and Spanish defender Nacho Monreal have left English club Arsenal on Saturday. El Neni has joined Turkish giants Besiktas on a season-long loan. The 27-year-old made 89 appearances for the Gunners after arriving from Basel in January 2016. Monreal started Arsenal's first 3 games of the season and captained the team against Burnley. The Spain international played 250 Arsenal games, scoring 10 goals after joining from Malaga in January 2013. Real Madrid will be looking to bounce back from conceding a late equalizer at home to Real Valladolid when they travel to Villarreal on Sunday. Head coach Zinedine Zidane is working to ensure the Giants do not fall further adrift of the leaders. Real hope to claim 3 points against a Villarreal defence, which conceded 4 in their last match at home. However, they have only kept 1 clean sheet in their last 12 away trips in La Liga.
I don't know how they're going to play, but they are a team who can handle the ball really well. Even if they have not started the season with good results, they're a team who can give us a hard time because, as you said, they have good players and we know it. We've prepared for the game well during the week. We are ready for every kind of player they use because things might change.
We'll leave there for now, but we'd love to hear from you. Send your feedback to the contacts on the screen and follow us on our digital media platform. I'm Penina Karibe. Thank you for watching.